Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my July 2019 horoscope report for you. It is my intention for this video to give you the information that I believe that you need to make this the best month possible and learn a little astrology while you're at it. Definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, where I have a very extensive astrology blog, including blogs on the new and full moons and how best to use those power periods. If you are interested in learning astrology and you resonate with how I teach, check out my astrology apprenticeship program, also at anniehelpsyou.com. Definitely check out my new book, that has become a beautiful bedside companion and purse-toting companion for my fellow spiritual seekers, an Amazon bestseller, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days. And you can see that at radicalprayerbook.com. So what do we have in store for you this month? I'm going to go into lots of details. Let's check them out now. Hello, Aries friends. Welcome to my July 2019 horoscope report for you. We have a wild month of massive changes, high emotion, high drama, crazy endings, new beginnings, everything dramatic that Aries energy tends to love because Aries energy loves change. So if you're looking for change, you're definitely going to find it this month for sure. We've got eclipse news already may have started coming in as of May. June, hot spot for that, but the eclipses are actually in July. So we've got the eclipses, we've got Mercury retrograde casting uncertainty into the whole picture. We've got a massive amount of energy in water that is either dousing your fire enough so that you can get super focused and really, really productive, or it can douse your fire so much that you get exhausted from over emotion or people being emotional around you or emotional situations. High emotion this month, but full of massive potential for transformation and huge trajectory changes. This is a really, really big pivotal month for Aries. The planets moving into Leo are going to start adding zest, excitement, creativity, and atone these challenging energies of these water forces that feel like they're working against us. The eclipses, I do expect to be very positive for many of us, but I say us because I have Aries rising, but there is going to be a lot of bittersweetness. There's going to be saying goodbyes, and some of the goodbyes are not going to be welcome, but there are going to be a lot of hellos as well, and those are very often going to be more exciting. So we've just got a ton of this happening, preparing for this amazing month of August. Even though we're not focusing on August, I am going to give you a little prelude to say that there's some tough things to get through in July, but as we get closer to the end of the month, things are going to open up, and August is amazing. It's so wonderful for Aries. I'm so excited about it. So you just got to be less Aries-like this month, be slower, be more patient, breathe more, be more inward as you're being productive, because there will be a lot of busyness as well. Jupiter is still expanding and adding life to the ventures that Aries is trying to pull forth. And we've got just a little bit longer before that moves forward and really starts helping Aries to rip roar. So you are just on the verge of something huge. Things are already happening for you. This is going to be a huge month, and more things are in store. So I'm going to go into all the details. I'm going to drop in the charts. I've also made a wonderful grid for early, middle, and late degree placements. I haven't done this before, to show you the overlap and the things that are the same and different for each of you in the timelines as far as the aspects that are occurring, that are carrying over from July into August. And then I will give you a Mercury retrograde video, because we do spend half of our lives with Mercury in retrograde. So the more you can understand this, the more you can navigate through these energies this month, because you're really going to need to understand how you work a Mercury retrograde, especially at the same time as eclipses, because eclipses are going to bring in news and things that you need to take action on. So understanding the rules of the Mercury retrograde that are going to govern how you use these eclipse opportunities is going to be very important. Then we'll talk about the general transits, and I'll give you more things to watch so that you can have the best month possible. Okay, so let's look at the charts now. Okay, so we're going to go into lots of details about the good, the bad, and the ugly this month. And first we need to know where you are at in the 30-degree spectrum of Aries. Okay, so early degree Aries are pretty much the March born, or 0 to 9 degrees. Middle degree Aries are around April 1st through 10th, or 10 to 19 degrees. Late degree Aries, April 11th through the rest of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees. I am in the middle degree group with you for my rising sign. I do often get the question, are these for someone who has an Aries rising versus an Aries sun or an Aries moon. The moon view of the horoscope, the sun view of the horoscope, the rising view of the horoscope are all windows we look out of the house of our experience. And even though those windows have different views, you know, maybe there's a tree out that one, there's like a big crane out this one, and then there's like a river out this one. All of those things are pieces of what it's like to live in that house. And similarly, your sun, rising, and moon horoscope views show you the weather or the occurrences or the pieces that are part of your whole astrological picture, or your bigger astrological picture, we'll say. Okay, so there are things that I really love about this month for Aries placements. There are things that I have to warn you about because they're very likely to be an experience for you, and I want to equip you to know what's happening. And then there are open potentials that could go either way. The first thing that we note, and this is true for early, middle, and late, is that there's a very full fourth house. See, that's the late degree chart. And then middle degree chart, full fourth house. Early degree chart, full fourth house. And this Venus is going to get in there too. So that's going to add there. So regardless of whether you're in the early, middle, or late degree spectrum, the fourth house is super full. So here's what I love about fourth house stuff. And okay, we'll put love, and then we'll put kind of like, we're not sure. All right. So fourth house energies. What I love is home and family is going to be a huge focus for Aries placements this month. What I love about the potential of that is there could be extra family harmony. There could be going back to a place that feels like home. There could be the visitation of relatives. Things like that, where you feel like that energy of family and home is really brought into the picture. There could be exciting things going on as far as your residence and, you know, where you're going to keep yourself, real estate, temporary lodging, anything having to do with where your home and your family are housed. This is a major topic that's coming up this month. There can be a lot of breakthroughs within home and family, and there can be a lot of just sweet, beautiful, just really, really soft, the softer side of Aries really coming out with these family connections. So part of what I'm worried about with it is there's a massive amount of water energy this month. And water energy doesn't blend well with Aries. You know, it kind of makes us mad. And it can interfere with our fire flow. Sometimes that could turn out to be a good thing if we need a little help staying contained or maintained. But in general, this water energy is at a challenging angle for our placements. So we are going to have quite a bit of tension, stress, things to push through, and emotional storms. You know, the eclipses, Mercury retrograde, all of that energy is going to be in a challenging angle to all of the Aries placements pretty much. So we have to be aware that it's going to be a very emotional month. But it's not doomed that all or even most of that energy is going to be here. We could have quite a lot of it here in the nice column, you know. But even in the nice column, there is just a way about it that doesn't flow as well with how Aries energy rolls. So in order to most enjoy this month, breathing and slowing down and trying to not be hasty and just basically not being yourself. You'll do better this month if you are less yourself, unless of course you have a bunch of water planets and you just have a little bit of Aries and you are more naturally watery. This month makes me think very much about the art of Aikido. If you don't know Aikido, you can look it up. This martial art form is one where it's defensive, so it doesn't have a focus on offense. This is where you see like these little people, sometimes they'll be like a small person, okay, and they like take this big person down without barely doing anything. They use the weight and energy and force of the person moving against them to bring them down. And they basically do this by either getting out of the way or moving in the same direction as the person who's coming at them, rather than moving against the person. Now, it's Aries' second nature to move against anything that comes to us. You know, if like somebody wants to bring something, we're like, okay, Bring it on, right? And that can be very favorable, but learning the art of Aikido in practice and in mental Aikido and all of these things is going to be very helpful for Aries in general, but especially this month because of all of that water and because of the touchiness of some of the family topics, you know? So just try to move with energy instead of moving like against it. Definitely watch my June report to get super details about how these two eclipses on July 2nd and 16th could affect us and how I've seen those kind of things, those placements affect Aries and what houses are going to be and what that can look like, because there was so much to cover that I had to break it down into 2 months, first of all. Second of all, even though the eclipses are in July, we very often feel those 4, 6, even 8 weeks before. So like in May, I'm recording this in May and I've gotten eclipse news already, and that's very common. But the eclipses are both at challenging angles to Aries. And that doesn't mean that beautiful things can't come. There's a lot of recognition. There's a lot of, you know, home news. There's a lot of inner and outer breakthroughs that can happen for Aries at this time, but it is going to feel a little conflictive, and it could be bittersweet, and it could be like something amazing is happening and something challenging is happening at the same time. So just kind of be on guard that you need to be well rested to manage a lot of the overstimulation this month. Now, here's something else that I do love about this month, and especially August. I love, love, love August for us. Okay, so obviously I'll tell you more about that in the August report, but I'll give you a little prelude because some of the energies that make August amazing for us are going to start dancing in this month, and those are going to be saving graces for us. Okay, so those come in the form of planets moving into the sign of Leo. The sign of Leo placements are beautiful for Aries. Anything in fire, plus we still have, Jupiter here doing awesome things, especially for middle degree placements. But as the planets move into Leo, they're going to make the most wonderful aspect in all of astrology, the trine, for the Aries placements. And that's going to start to ignite creativity. So your creativity can be a way that you get out of the problems that may come in July. There could be an emotional issue, and then you use your creativity and your inspiration to, figure out ways around them or to roll with them, or however it turns out to be. So we have Mercury going to make kisses. Now it moves forward, and then it's going to move backwards, and then it's going to move forwards again. Mars is just moving forwards in Leo. And then at the end of the month, the sun will start to move forward. And then as we get at the end of July into August, Venus is going to move into Leo. Okay, so as we get towards the end of the month, this energy is really starting to open up for us. All right, so I'm going to make a little grid of some things for the early, middle, and late degree placements. But I also want to point out that besides the energy of the planets going into Leo, for Aries placements, that also means the 5th house is accentuated. And the 5th house is the house of Leo. So, anything having to do with children, creativity, being seen, being in the limelight, things like that, that's going to start to come into focus. And in August, that's going to be just like full blown. So I love launches. I love important things. I love appearances. I love anything that you have to do that's a big deal, like mid-August and after. But you'll start feeling the zest that you need, towards the end of this month especially. Okay, so here's a little grid to understand better for early, middle, and late what's going on. Okay, so for everybody, we've got 4th house, home, family, all of that going on. Everybody, we have emotions, residence, houses, housing, things like that. If you have to make a huge decision about something and you can help it, I like mid-August and after, unless you do something short-term, like do a bridge agreement, do something that holds you over until the energies are more clear. You're going to have a lot of uncertainty this month. And so if you can just kind of get through it until the latter part or the middle part of August, then it's going to be better. The next piece that we have is the sun is going to get into Leo on July 24th. So for the early degree placements, you're going to have the sun making that beautiful trine with your Aries placement or placements in July. For the middle and late degree placements, you're going to have the sun doing this in August, right? The next thing that we have going on is Mars. Mars is going to be in Leo. For early and middle, that's going to be July. So you'll get your kisses. Oh, now let's back up here. So when we say kisses from the sun, what does that look like? The sun brings vitality, creativity, things involving children, things, zest, vibrance, excitement, inspiration. All right, so those things come for early in July, and then for the rest of you, middle and late in August. Mars is action. So action, results, being able to do stuff, male energy, things that are like accomplishments, things like that. The early and middle degree placements, you have that going on in July. The very end of the middle, like the last couple of degrees, and then all the late, you'll have that going on in August. But you'll still all get those nice kisses. And if you notice, if you pay attention every year to when the planets start to get into Leo, this will historically be a time for you to shine and for you to feel vibrant and for activity and for important things to happen for you, if you track it that way. All right, so Venus for you early degree placements, oops, we'll just turn that on its right way here. So Venus for you early degree placements, that's going to start enhancing and giving those kisses, those trines, at the end of July. The rest of the early and middle and all late are going to have those kisses happen in August. And Venus kisses are love, beauty, money, self-esteem boosts, investments, things like that. So if you have to plan a launch or something with something with your business, I love these trines for that. If it's a long-term launch or something that's never been seen or a really big deal, we want to move more towards this, into August time. And let me just tell you, the transits in August are amazing. So July is going to be a little tough, but once you get into August, it's like, wow, so much awesomeness in August. I don't even know what to do about it. And a lot of it is going to directly benefit Aries. All right. So Mercury for the first couple of degrees of Aries is going to be really doing things, okay? Because you're going to have it cross over there to make that trine. And this has to do with news, expression, mobility, vehicles, things like that, communication. So early, very, very early, you'll start to have that trine in the beginning of July. Then it will go back into Cancer. And then for all early, middle, and late, those trines will happen with Mercury in August. Okay, so just kind of the whisper of it is happening. But there might be some things that have to be gone back over emotionally to be able to have the expansion. And that's how I really see these transits, when there's something that happens that's a little less comfortable. Sometimes we just have to, they're just testing the ground to see if the expansion and the next steps in the evolution can be sustained. And if it can't, we've got to backtrack and strengthen some things, and then we can move forward. Okay, so a couple of more pieces here. All early, middle, and late degree placements have this energy of South Node, transiting South Node Saturn, and Pluto in the 10th house. So, and these are long term, they're just continuing. But because the eclipse at 24 degrees, which remember to watch my June video as well, because I go into the more details about this, but that eclipse is going to hit near Pluto and certainly, just like enhancing all these things that are going on. So for all early, middle, and late degree placements, important work news, things involving father, give your dad a call. Your dad may need more support. There may be something he's not telling you. There may be things brewing for him for better or worse. There may be ways he needs help or that you can help him. Very rarely, I sometimes see a mom show up here. If mom was like a strong single mom or a strong personality or kind of play the role of dad, you might see some of this show up here. But in general, it's the male or father energy or father figure or things like that. Also, things with bosses could come up. And all the energy in Cancer really is accentuating the fourth house, as we talked about, for early, middle, and late. So that's mom stuff. So, you know, just check in with your parents. There might be notable things that are going on there. Middle degree Aries placements. Special note for you all, and I am here with you. Jupiter is playing around 16 degrees, so it's going to go back from 16 to 14 degrees this month, and actually in August is when it turns direct at 14 degrees. But for those who are, we'll do it this way so we don't confuse anybody, between like 9 degrees and 21 degrees, so basically all middle degree placements, a little smidge possibly at the end of early and a little smidge at the beginning of late, are being most affected by Jupiter right now. And Jupiter is making a trine, which again is this beautiful angle. So massive amount of sweetness for very important things for you all occurring now. And for middle and late degree placements, from like the late ones after, as we get later into the year, so like August through November, Jupiter is going to sail through the rest of middle again and then sail through all of late. So those of you in the late degree placements of Aries, if you haven't had your Jupiter big blessings yet, perhaps, because Jupiter hasn't made the official trine with your placements, but know that that is coming. And I do often get this question. Sometimes people say, Jupiter's let me down, nothing big has happened. We always have to remember that we can only have the things from the stars, the starry manifestations, that we're a vibrational match for. So if you find that energetic potentials that are showing up that are positive as a potential aren't showing up, you have to check your matching. If you're not a match, you have to do inner work to clear out the belief systems so that as the energy tries to bring you something, that you can be a match for it, okay? So you can't blame astrology and say, this didn't happen for me. You have to look inside yourself and say, why am I not a match for that? And how can I be a match for that? Okay, so now I'm going to give you a Mercury retrograde tutorial. Then you'll see me back on the screen and I will go into the general transits, things that I definitely need to know this month, besides the things we've already talked about. And even if you're tempted to skip the Mercury retrograde tutorial because you hear about Mercury retrograde all the time, do know that Mercury is retrograde half of our lives. So the more that we can know about that and how to use it, because the things I talk about in that part of the video are definitely going to come up for most of you, if not all, in some way or another. So the more you can know, the more you can roll with the astrological rhythms instead of against them. Because you want to put your boat out from your deserted island when the tide's going out, right? Not when it's going in, because you'll never get off the island. Okay, so we'll go into the Mercury tutorial now. Hi, this is going to be a quick tutorial of the energy of Mercury as it relates to the retrograde cycle and the things to keep in mind that are most important to hold in your consciousness as we go through this phase. So the first thing to know is that Mercury is retrograde or in its shadow, pre or post shadow period for about half of the year. So half of our lives we are in this. That's why it's really important to understand it. The second thing to know is that Mercury is retrograde for 3-ish weeks at a time, and there's about a 2-ish week before and after shadow transit. So the pre-transit shadow period and the post-shadow transit period. So all in all, it's about a 7-ish week process. So it is kind of long at a time. And the implications of Mercury retrograde are very strongly seen in this pre-shadow period and especially in the first part of this post-shadow period. And then they tend to like linger and just sort of wear off towards the end of that post-shadow period. Mercury rules communication and mobility, so anything involving speaking, writing, communicating, publishing, your devices that you use for communicating, your phones, computers, things like that, your cars, vehicles, walking, your mobility, your capacity to be mobile, your legs, the things that make you able to be mobile. If someone's in a wheelchair, their wheelchair would be there, or whatever it is that is related to your personal mobility. One thing to note as I describe the rest of this is that for people who are born with Mercury retrograde at birth, sometimes they feel the opposite effects of what everybody else feels during a Mercury retrograde period, and that things can flow even better for them during a Mercury retrograde period than when Mercury is direct. So if you have come to notice that, it may be because you have Mercury retrograde at birth. And it also may mean that you have, even if you don't officially have Mercury retrograde, and this is definitely a way more technical thing for you to have to try to figure out, but if Mercury was in a pre or post shadow period close to the retrograde, you could experience having Mercury retrograde from the birth perspective, even though it wouldn't as readily show up on your chart. So that's an important thing to note as well. Okay, so what tends to happen when Mercury is in retrograde is that there are changes to plans. There is uncertainty or confusion about what direction to take. There are plans that were made that are called into question. They may turn out to work out, but they get called into question. Things get called into question. Relationships get called into question. The use of devices and transportation gets called into question. Plans get called into question. And then sometimes they'll work out and sometimes they won't. But this calling into question is a typical Mercury retrograde thing. The topics of travel will often come up, and this can be a fine time for travel. There is a misconception that you shouldn't travel during Mercury retrograde. That's not true. You just have to be more aware because plans tend to change. Gates tend to change at the last minute. Issues with a car tend to come up if you're on a road trip, if you haven't, gotten everything checked out first or whatever, or even sometimes if you did. Impediments to travel, changes. When you're making agreements, Mercury also rules agreements. So if you're agreeing to something, the odds are that you're going to change what you're agreeing to. So it doesn't lend itself as well for long-term or rigid agreements. There are exceptions. If you're in there, don't worry. There are exceptions. But if you are negotiating during Mercury retrograde, you're either not seeing the whole picture, someone is purposely or inadvertently hiding something from you, or there are things that are coming that you're not aware of that are going to change how you can interact in the agreement that you've made. So in general, it is a good idea to be flexible. Flexible, temporary bridge agreements are like the theme that I like to put out there to best use this energy. Let's say you have to negotiate something or you're agreeing to something, and if it's minor or low stakes, you don't have to worry as much. It's the big things, that are more important. But there could be some minor things where it would be helpful to know this. Okay, so keep your flexibility. Try to make a interim or bridge agreement. So like, for instance, let's say you're trying to get a tenant in a house or in a professional space, and Mercury's in retrograde. Something like a month to month, totally awesome to embark on in a Mercury retrograde because you can get out of it. Something like a 3-month lease or even 3 to 6 months, something short term. You can make something for a month and then renegotiate when the planets are more clear, the energy is more clear. So those are ways that I like to deal with the Mercury retrograde. And it's definitely a good time to be aware that you might have things happen to your cars and phones and stuff. In general, I don't love this time as the best time to get a new device or car unless you can help it, or unless it's a short-term or interim device. Like, let's say you get a temporary phone to bridge you over something, that's more appropriate. Or you get a car that you plan to have for 3 to 6 months, or something like that. But for things that you're hoping to keep long-term, the retrogrades tend to make it shorter term, and that's typical. Another place to be careful is launches. Big, awesome, life-changing, once-in-a-lifetime launches are not the ones you want to have when Mercury is in retro. However, let's say you're a teacher and you teach classes twice a year, and Mercury retrograde, is the time for your re-enrollment. Re-enrollment is much better supported. But do also expect that when you have launches in a Mercury retrograde cycle, that more people are going to be wishy-washy, and there's more of a chance for people that have joined that are going to leave the class. So, it's not always a reliable time frame for trying to get people to commit to things, depending on what the nature of it is. It's hard. Commitments get a little bit more difficult. So basically, the things to remember for Mercury retrograde is the flexibility, be extra careful, check your plans, your travel plans and other things, and documents and agreements extra carefully. And then anything that has the prefix re, pretty much, there's going to be exceptions to this, but rejuvenation, redoing, re-editing, rethinking, reconsidering, even rest. It's a good time to rest. Anything like that where you're like going back over something is better indicated than something brand new, if possible, unless the new thing is short term or a bridge or something you consider doing, like, oh, I've always wanted to try that. Maybe I'll take that class, and the class is, 6 months or whatever. That can be fine. What we really need to have caution with is the bigger things and the things that are higher stakes, etc. Mercury retrograde can be an amazing time. You can get lots of this stuff done, inspiration from the past, tying up loose ends from the past, and preparing for a nice fertile ground for future wonderful things. I'm calling the theme of July 2019 for all signs 3 times the manifestation power, bold new directions, and time to be brave. It's always interesting when we have a transit like Mercury retrograde that brings this eye to the past, coinciding with so much potential for new energy. So we've got 2 intense eclipses this month, plus 2 new moons this month. Whenever we have a month with 2 new moons, it opens up more potentials for brilliant new paths, and the same thing with the eclipses. But this is happening all under the cover of this Mercury retrograde. So that means that themes from the past, things worked on in the past, contacts from the past, plans from the past, are all going to factor in very heavily to the new opportunities that come. So we talked at length about Mercury retrograde and where that hit in your chart or will hit in your chart, and also what the implications are there. So we're going to go into some additional things to know about this month. The eclipses obviously are bringing massive changes. The transits this month are pretty equal as far as sweet or challenging, and a lot of them could just really go either way. So when we have a situation where there's a transit that's occurring and someone can either manifest something positive or something challenging from it, it really makes it more important for us to watch how we're looking at things. The perspective that we have on life, the perspective that we have on everything, colors, changes, effects, how we experience things. So the more you can be well rested and positive can help you to frame the energies that come in. And the more present you can be emotionally is also going to flavor this month, because With the eclipses and with the Cancer energies and even with the retrograde energies, there's a massive amount of emotion this month. High emotional tides this month, for better and worse. So amazing culminations, things that you've been hoping for forever can just come to you at this time. I always think about the eclipse time as the vision of the spider with the web. You've spent all this time until July weaving this beautiful web. And sometimes those webs can get really big. I think about the webs I've seen like in the rainforest in Costa Rica, like, taller than a person, these gigantic webs. And of course the spiders that go along with them are pretty big too. But in any case, this web that you've created, now the eclipse time and the retrograde time are both times to just sit back and see what food comes to you. It's not the best time for initiating something huge, although sometimes chance or other things force it to happen that way. But the more you can be flexible, be relaxed, be well rested, not be super intent on pushing an agenda, being flexible, the more you can observe what is coming to you so that you can strike or take in according to what feels the best with the options that come to you. It's a fine time for research, but it's not the best time necessarily to try to push something to happen. It's more of an acceptance of what's coming in and what you're going to do with it. A lot of the eclipse news and changes may have already taken place before the actual eclipses, which occur this month. So you may already be steeped in, rolling around in, coping with, for better and worse, the eclipse changes. So the Cancer energy is bringing in a lot of emotion, a lot of tilt towards the energy of home, family, housing, home projects, things involving childhood psychology, upbringing, having to take some steps backwards in order to be able to take future steps forward. But there's also a coinciding energy of Leo. And Leo is going to give us the audacity to do something with the opportunities that come to us. Also a zest and a passion and creative expression. So in general, new moons and full moons have power for positive changes and things coming to a head, things coming out into the open, things coming to manifestation. When we have eclipses an eclipse on a new moon or a full moon, it gives us 3 times the manifestation power. So 3 times the new beginnings, 3 times the drama or culmination or, things coming to a head. So it's just definitely a powerful month, very, very, very intense. Intensity is another keynote of this time. As we talked about in the June horoscopes, and definitely if you haven't watched my June horoscopes, you want to do that because I cover the eclipses in detail. There's so much to talk about for this time period. I couldn't fit it all in 1 month. So in June, I go into detail and tell you exactly where the eclipses will hit for you and what manifestations you can see. So definitely rewatch that here in July, even if you watch them in June, so that you can be better poised for understanding the changes that are coming. But in general, the eclipse cycle of Cancer and Capricorn bring in lots of changes to home and family and work and your place out in the world, things with mother and father, and your maternal and paternal energies. Look back to 2009 to 2011 and 2000 to 2001. Those are the times when we experienced this Capricorn Cancer eclipse cycles in the past. So you might see patterns. And I have gotten this question, if those have been your worst times, don't worry, that's not necessarily going to happen again. It's the themes that are brought up that are common to have a continuum. So the areas of life that were a focus, those will likely be a focus at this time. And it doesn't have to manifest the same way that it did. Okay, so I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights here as certain dates to note that are my favorite or my most you have to watch out for. If you want a complete list of the aspects that are occurring and what's involved with those aspects, what planets and signs are at play, and what you can expect from those, definitely sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com. You'll also get my 28-day virtual coaching program called Shine for free when you sign up for my free email newsletter. Plus, you'll get a written, detailed email newsletter a month before, just like I do the horoscopes a month before, of the dates and the aspects and what to look out for, so you have them for your planning purpose and you get those a month early. So you can see that at anniehelpsyou.com. but we'll hit some highlights here. The new moons are going to be, well, first the new moon and the solar eclipse, 10 degrees of Cancer, is on July 2nd. So that is a time of major intensity. I do have blogs on my website for how to make the most of each new moon and each full moon in the different signs. So definitely check those out. Mercury is going to go retrograde at 4 degrees of Leo and back to 23 degrees of Cancer. We talked about this at length, but that's occurring on July 7th, and that pretty much goes until July 31st or August 1st, depending on your time zone. The whole month is covered in Mercury retrograde. We've got some challenges to look out for as far as squares and oppositions throughout the month, and you can see the details of that in my newsletter. But one of the things that I most want you to be aware of is the full moon eclipse on July 16th. That is a lunar eclipse, 24 degrees of Capricorn, lots of intensity around that time, things coming to culmination. Be extra careful and also look out for extra awards and things that you've worked on from the past that can come in a big way. I always try to keep that period of time a little bit light if possible. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but just be extra careful around that time. What they say about the full moons with, crazy things happening is really true. Whenever you watch these mystical shows or like Merlin or whatever, it's always a full moon when these, crazy things go on. So just take note of that and be prepared to deal with whatever comes. The second full moon, or rather the second new moon, is at 8 degrees of Leo, and that's on July 31st, or thereabouts, depending on your time zone. So the second new moon in the calendar month is a black moon, and there's extra power at this time for wishes and new beginnings. So plenty of opportunities for new beginnings. This month is just chock full of them. Throughout the month, we have some challenges with Uranus, we have challenges with Pluto, we have challenges, Pluto, Uranus, kind of a theme there, Saturn. So some of the outer planets are in challenging configurations, and this can bring tests, but it doesn't have to be a be-all, end-all. Often it can bring overstimulation, and that could be a major theme of this month. We could get through this month and have complete positive outcomes and no negativity at all. Certain people will have that experience. Other people will have massive drama and lots of challenges, but there's no one way it has to go. It's wide open here. But understanding the element of the opposition is important because oppositions are pulling us in two different directions. So be prepared to be pulled in two different directions, and also be prepared to be overstimulated. This is going to be an incredibly busy month physically, like moving around, doing stuff. Emotionally, it will be busy. You will be handling things. You might be holding space for other people who are dealing with changes. During eclipse cycles, we'll often see people around us going through massive change, and sometimes we are too. So it's hard to tell at this point if you're going to be a space holder for other people as they go through these big changes, or if you're going to be one of the people going through the big changes, or both. Sometimes in eclipse time, we're going through these big changes and we're also holding space for other people doing that. So be prepared to be overstimulated emotionally and mentally. That's why this theme of just trying to be well rested is really important, because we know that you can't really handle things as well when you're tired. So the more you can be not tired and take your supplements and, do whatever you need to for support, do your walks, do your exercise, you're going to much better be able to use the energies that are present at this time. And there are a lot of sweet aspects in between these challenging ones. So there are some nuisances, but there are lots of sweet things too. Okay, so definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. I have an extensive astrology blog plus other blogs that you can check out there on different topics. If you resonate with how I teach and would love to learn, my astrology apprenticeship program is open for enrollment, and I will teach you everything you need to know to do astrology professionally. Or if you just want it for your self-development process, it's amazing for that as well. You can check out all the other kinds of goodies I have on my site, including subliminal recordings that I create for you to help and train your brain to the positive changes that you're trying to make. And you can also see my other professional development courses there. Definitely check out my book, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days. As I mentioned before, it has become a purse friend. It has become a car friend, a bedtime companion. It's just an amazing book for the spiritual seeker to really help you to use the power of word and prayer and intention to manifest the positive changes you want to see in your life. Check out my husband's website, IamHelios.com. He has amazing options now for you to use audio, subliminal, power-packed, frequency-enhanced recordings to mitigate the negative energies of transits and to enhance the positive energies of astrological transits. So we've worked together in the way of trying to figure out what resources would be best for you based on the things I see in the charts. So you can see the options for audios that can help you to maximize the transit. So you can check that out at IamHelios.com. Also, you can book a live reading at my site, AnnieHelpsYou.com, either with me or my amazing apprentice, Marilee. And you can also book sessions with my husband, B.R. Newman, at IamHelios.com. Okay, so those are the things I most have in mind for you this month. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.